All right. We are live with another episode of Cafe Crash. I'm your host, Daniel Crozier, and I am here with the amazing John Bermuda Schwartz. Oh my gosh. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you. What an introduction. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I've had a lot of coffee.
No, I'm ready. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Excellent. Yeah. Sorry. John, actually, you prefer Bermuda, right?
Today on Bermuda. Yeah.
Excellent. Bermuda, how are you?
I'm fine. All things considered, this has been a pretty amazing year, unfortunately. And all things considered, pretty good. I'm good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you're in good health, and you're out in LA. Is that right?
Yeah. Torrance, actually. So not far from LAX, from the airport here. And it's things are pretty tight. There's no going out to restaurants right now, and it's pretty locked down. But hanging in there and eating well at home, and doing the best we can.
Right. Oh, I'm with you. We're pretty much, that's all we do is stay home, work on comic books, interview amazing people like you, and drink a lot of coffee.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. So Bermuda, you have an amazing music career. You have and you've just put out a new book, Black and White, and Weird All Over. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you come from and how you got into music.
Yeah, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, way back in the 50s. The cool 50s.
Yeah.
And grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and by the end of the 60s, moved to LA and have lived in the area my entire life since then. And I come from sort of a musical family, actually very musical family. My brother originally played drums, and I inherited his drums. He switched to guitar. I got his drums and started taking drum lessons. My mother played piano, and she was also a singer. She was like a child singer on the radio back in the day. My father played accordion, not professionally, but he owned and could play the accordion, which I have his accordion. Cool. And so, I came from a musical background, and sort of becoming more aware of music in the early 60s, listening to radio, and of course the Beatles starting in 64. Yeah. I was more in tune with pop music, and by the time I started taking drum lessons in 65, I was kind of already listening to a lot of pop music, Beach Boys and I think the Turtles at that point already, and of course the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. And so there was always music around, and always music in the family. My parents had a lot of music albums, from Gene Krupa to Latin orchestras to Alan Sherman records, comedy albums of all things. So I had a pretty well-rounded background, and then I picked up a lot of the rock and roll stuff, of the day on the radio. And back in those days, you listened to the top 40 station; they played everything from the Rolling Stones to Petula Clark to kind of pop stuff. So it was a much wider range. If you weren't listening to country music or classical music, you were listening to pop.
Yeah,
and that was a very wide category at the time. So I had a little bit of jazz sensibilities, and some big band sensibilities, and pop and rock sensibilities. So pretty well-rounded introduction to music back in the day.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. And then I think I read in the 70s you were getting into working with was it new wave bands, and eventually made your way to Dr. Demento.
Well, the 70s, when I was in school, I was in the school orchestras and stuff like that, and we would always try and get together and have some fun and make some music, but it was only horn players. There were not guitar or bass or even really piano players in these orchestras. It was all winds and a percussion section, and that was it. Sometimes strings. And so, the first group of musicians I played with really was like clarinet and trombone and saxophone and a trumpet and stuff like that. We did Dixieland music and all sorts of stuff. So we some friends and I, in 1973, Dr. Demento, of course, all the kids listened to the Dr. Demento show, and he was on live on Sunday nights here in LA. This was before his show went national. And so everybody listened to him, and all of my friends did as well. So we recorded a song. He was having a contest to do a version of a very popular song on his show called Pico and Sepulveda. And he put the word out that he wanted all the people who were, wanted to do a version of it to send it in, and the winner would win a 78 record of the original recording of Pico and Sepulveda. Cool. So my friends and I got together and made a recording and sent it in, and it came in second place out of like over 100 entries, which was nice. But Dr. Demento also used it for his theme for a little while, because we did an instrumental version. So he would play it at the beginning of the show, and he could talk over it because there weren't lyrics in it. Mm-hmm. So we sort of got, we got a little spoiled. We thought that was really cool. And not long after that, we recorded another song, sent that, and he played that too. It was called The Ballad of Woodsy Owl. Now, these aren't songs that we wrote, but these are songs we just got together and recorded. And he played that too. And some more time went by, and I graduated high school and all this. And me and some of the same guys got together again about a year and a half later and recorded another song called Mr. Ghost Goes to Town. And there he had a couple of versions of that on his show. And he played that too. And it still gets played around Halloween. So we thought that was really cool. Never sent him anything again. But what was cool was, at the time, having homemade music played on a show, that was rare. Now, a few years later, it became very popular. I had a chance to meet him in 1980 and went down and got to see him do a show live. Ooh. And he invited me back to do an interview. Now, by this time, a lot of his show was catering to a lot of independent musicians and a lot of homemade music. And he thought it would be cool to have me on, being one of the first people to have homemade music played on his show. Mm. So I came back to do an interview. That was September 14th, 1980. And Weird Al was there that night. Now, he was already popular on the show. He was one of those guys who'd been sending in recordings too. Mm-hmm. But he had gotten very popular on the show. And he would come down and answer phones and all that stuff, and sing songs live on the air and do some PSAs on the air and things like that. And he was one of the personalities on the show. He was one of the cast members. And I met him, and he had just written a song that weekend that he wanted to perform live on the air. And I beat on his accordion case for it. And it was a parody of Another One Bites the Dust called Another One Rides the Bus.
I love that song.
So literally the night I met him was the first time I worked with him. And also after we did the recording, before we took off, I said, that's a lot of fun. You should have a band. I'll be your drummer. And that got, not knowing what that would entail, of course, but I just said that, and that was that. And that was the introduction. Now he called me about 3 weeks later. He says, that he was in school at the time. He was back in school a little north of LA. And he called me from up there, and he says, that song we did, it's getting played on like national radio now. It's getting played on morning drive time now in like major markets. I said, what happened? He says, well, it went out on the national show, a couple of weeks after we did it live. It went out as part of the recorded show that was syndicated. And it usually got played on Sunday nights in these markets, late on a Sunday night, 8, sometimes 10 p.m. And a lot of these markets where they would have like the morning zoo guys on in the morning doing their, 6 to 10 a.m., whatever, doing all their shtick. They would very often listen to the Dr. Demento show that had aired on their station the night before, and they would pull songs off of it to play in the morning. And Another One Rides the Bus was one of those songs that was getting played now in drive time in major markets. So nice. Al is getting like major airplay now. He says, this is beginning to take off. I got myself a manager. I'm going to be home I'll be done with school in January or December or something like that. I want to get together. We're going to record a couple of songs. We'll put out a record and just, see what happens.
Sweet.
So great. So he had a couple of things already recorded. He came, we recorded a song called Happy Birthday in my brother's garage.
Nice.
And in fact, he played guitar on it. My brother did. And we put out a 4-song EP just called Weird Al Yankovic, Another One Rides the Bus, but it was on the Placebo label, made up label name. And that became affectionately known as the Placebo EP. Now, he only pressed 1,000 copies of it and literally went around to all the record stores back when Tower Records and Music Plus and all of those, when there were record stores in town. And, some of them took 5 or 10 copies. They sort of, maybe somebody at the store knew who he was from the Dr. Demento show, thought, well, this would be great. We'll have, we'll have a record by this guy. And It sold pretty well. I mean, it did okay. It's only 1,000 copies. There aren't very many left, but it's highly prized among collectors, and
Nice.
they fetch $300, $400, so
Nice.
kind of a cool thing. Anyway, that's kind of the beginning of the story with Al. But I was with when I met Al, I was playing with a new wave band here in town called Nipper.
Yeah.
And it was the guy's last name, Joe, and his brother Scott Nipper. and so that was the band. And I had worked with the guys, kind of doing some other recordings. I had met them a couple of years earlier, but we formed an actual, our band, our own project. And I stuck with them about a year and a half, and then kind of moved on. But I've always been in bands. I'm in like 3 or 4 other bands right now.
Nice.
None of them working, but I still when I'm not on the road, I'm still involved with other bands, and and when it's time to go on the road, they all obviously defer to Al, and they're all very kind in having me come back and play with them.
Oh, that's so cool.
When I return, so it's that's kind of nice. Even if I'm gone for 4 or 5 months, sometimes they're very patient. They let me come back in, and it's that's nice too. So I don't have to start from scratch after every tour.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, with living during a pandemic right now, and everybody kind of being at home, are you able to get online with your bands and work on material or anything like that?
Well, we looked into that. One of the bands looked into it, and there was just, of course, they left it to me to figure out the best way so that there's not any lag, and having 3 or 4 or 5 people on different lines of different speeds, try and get together and do something. The lag is just it's not ideal. It's not terrible, but it's not ideal. I mean, we would just be stumbling all over ourselves, and we decided there just wasn't a system to make it work. Right. And consequently, I mean, I've not actually played with any live humans since I think March 10th was my last gig.
Okay.
So, that's I miss that, and they, we all miss it. I mean, it's not like they're out gigging without me. I mean, just nobody's working right now. Right.
Most definitely. I think was it during the 80s too? You also were taking up photography. Is that right?
A little bit. I got my first real camera from one of my bandmates back in the 70s. In fact, he was one of the guys on Pico and Sepulveda, and he was a flute player named Jeff Rona. Jeff went on to score some TV shows in Hollywood. He was one of the guys working for Roland who invented MIDI back in 1983. He was a smart guy. Not by playing flute. He moved to keyboard, and and he did very well. He became very well known in the industry. Nice. But he sold me his camera. We were both in high school, not the same high school, but we were both in school, and he sold me his Minolta SRT 101 camera, and that got me started on really taking photography seriously. I mean, I had a Polaroid camera. I probably had a Brownie camera, something like that. That maybe an Instamatic, but I mean, I never really had a camera that I could deal with, that I could control. And I very quickly also got into, I set up my own darkroom and started dealing with the black and white film. Color was really an expensive pain and all this stuff, but black and white was relatively simple. So I developed film. I loaded my own film canisters. I'd buy a 100-foot roll of film for like $10 or something, and then loaded into I had this special device that you put the film in, you put a canister on the end, and you turned a wheel, and it loaded the canister with however many frames you wanted. And I could print pictures in there, do enlargements and stuff like that. So I got into it, it became an economical hobby. And I shot some color, which I had to take out somewhere, but to get done. But black and white I could do at home.
Nice.
Well, unfortunately, when I moved away from home, I left the dark room behind and was shooting color exclusively. But I started, around 74. I think I got that camera. So I had been taking a lot of pictures. I was always used to having a camera with me and just taking pictures of everything. I've got pictures of my bandmates. I've got pictures of the family. I've got pictures of the dogs. I've got just, a very nice history of life at home in the 70s.
Yeah. We've got some of the photos that you incidentally just put out is it your first photo book? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's my only book.
Oh
It's
man.
a lot of firsts. Photos, first book. I'm an author now. It's cool.
Yeah. Black and white and weird all over.
Black and white and let's see, how does this work?
Oh, you want to? There you go.
Black and white and weird
Nice.
all over.
Nice. That's awesome.
The screen's backwards, so I can't see what.
Right. Right.
There we go. Okay.
That looks awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me throw up the overlay. So here's a.
Oh, you've got it. Okay.
Looks. Yeah. Let me go back to. Let's see here. Let me go back to the ticker here. So everybody who's interested can go to the to your website, Black and White, weird all over, and check that out. But yeah, these photos are just absolutely gorgeous. Here's a couple, some of the behind the scenes stuff on different productions with you and Weird Al.
That's living with a hernia, of course. That particular shot, that's from I love getting shots with the camera. I love getting behind the scenes shots, and stuff like that. So having the camera in there, and it's hard to see under where where the banner is there, but he's on a cart basically, or I don't know if they call it a truck or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So there's a scene in the video right before the bridge, and he sort of glides out of frame, and the way he glides out of frame is this guy is pulling him, smoothly out of the frame. So now you get to see how he's doing that. He didn't just kind of shuffle over by himself. Cool. So that's the other beauty of these behind the scenes shots is you sometimes on some of these you get to see the way something's done, where you don't really think about it or maybe even have a clue, and now it's like, oh, that's why he looked so smooth. He was on wheels. Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of these little innovations, these small little details. But I love her expression. That's hilarious.
That's Tress Mcneil. Tress went on to voice a lot of characters and cartoons, well known on The Simpsons. But this was 1983. She wasn't well known really at all, and she actually sang on the record. So
cool.
And I guess they figured, I don't know if it occurred to Al to try and get a Lucy lookalike, or if he thought she looked like Lucy, or if he thought, well, she sang on the record, so she should be in the video. But whatever it was, she turned out to be perfect. And nice. they did up her hair and put her in a 50s dress, and she really took on the character. There's a lot of expressions, like all the different voices she does, she can do all the different faces too. So she really looks like Lucy in some of these photos, and in some of the video you can really see it. So I mean, that was a very smart choice, and it was one of the very first things she did in Hollywood or in LA.
Man, that's fantastic. I mean, it looks like a snapshot is still, from the video. I do like how, Al's shirt is buttoned up at the top, but not all the way down.
Yeah, how careless of him. I'm going to guess that they were just actually sort of rehearsing this. I don't think I wasn't trying to shoot while they were actually taping. But so this was probably just kind of a run through. And I mean, the reason I have all these shots is I didn't have a lot to do in these videos. I mean, I'd have a couple of scenes, but I mean, largely, 90% of the day, I was just kind of standing around. So it wasn't like, it was any big deal for me to be taking pictures, or they had to wait for me to take a picture so I could go be in the scene. It was just, right. I was already not in front of the camera anyway. So I was instead next to the camera or off to the side or behind the camera, shooting what the camera was shooting. And that's how all of these scenes happen. So, I mean, this particular thing, I don't know if it looked exactly like this, but this was literally where it like right before, the end scene where the video goes to color and Al says, everybody rumba. And that's what they would have been rehearsing there,
nice.
So the camera could see it and all that.
Yeah. I love these little captures, just these little moments captured for, eternity here.
This one, Al did a lot of mugging for the camera. That was not necessarily a scene that was in the video. He just, they were probably getting ready to shoot it. And I, while they were talking or, doing whatever, dusting the lens or whatever, I would slip in there and Al, take some pictures. So he would just sort of pose and mug and do
Yeah.
whatever. So, that's where that photo comes from.
Yeah. And this looks like, more up close behind the photo, behind the lens here.
This is extremely up close and personal.
Yeah.
This obviously wasn't taken by me. This photo was taken by Bill Burke, who goes by Beefalo Bill. And he was, again, one of the cast members on the Dr. Demento show. And he was always there with the camera as well. And this was actually sometime in 1985. I used to go down and answer phones. Once I had become Al's drummer, I started going down to the show and just sort of, I wasn't as well known as Ludicrous Laurie or Musical Mike or Beefalo Bill or Whimsical Will or some of those guys. But, I would go down and answer phones and take requests and stuff like that, and just sort of be on hand and just kind of be there. So here I was, taking pictures, and Al let me do a lot of things he probably wouldn't let a lot of other people do. So, putting a camera a couple of inches from his face was a special favor, and it was just, he just was used to seeing me with the camera. It was no big deal that I would have a camera in my hand and be pointing it at him. So I got a lot of shots of him. I mean, tens of thousands of shots of him, over the years.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's What a nice slice of life in the recording booth.
This was at the Santa Monica Sound Recorders. That was the record label's recording studio, their in-house recording studio. And that is Al looking like he's never seen a mic before. I don't know. He's sort of curious about that thing. And that is Lisa Popeil getting ready to sing. And she is the daughter of Sam Popeil, who was the inventor of the Vegematic and all, a lot of these gadgets, these TV gadgets, that were being advertised in the late 50s and the 60s. And later on through her brother, Ron Popeil, who had a company called Ronco that did records, and they made all sorts of other stuff. He carried on the tradition. Wow. So she was singing on a song called Mr. Popeil, which is about her dad, which is about, Al names a pocket fisherman, and I want to, slice some lettuce, or, it's just all these different things in there. So she was called in to sing on it. And she actually sang on a number of things over the years with us. And she toured with us last year on the Strings Attached tour.
Oh, cool.
We had live, real singers along on the tour instead of us trying to sing stuff. And so she actually came out and toured with us for about 15 weeks. And it was very cool. It was very cool having her out. We did not do Mr. Popeil on that tour. Yeah. But she got to sing on a lot of stuff. I think some of the things she had sung on in the studio as well.
Oh man, that's absolutely, that's so delightful. It's so wonderful. And of course, everybody knows Eat It.
Eat it. Get yourself an egg and beat it.
Yep.
That's again, they're all obviously standing around waiting for someone to say, action or something. They're just kind of in place and just waiting. And of course, I didn't have a lot to do on that video, so I'm standing in the back taking pictures.
Yeah. And
you can see there's a guy on the right who's kind of half cut off, but it looks like he's looking at me like, who's that guy with the camera?
Right.
And they let me do this stuff because, I was his drummer, it was, they literally, I just start photographing him, just shoot. I don't even wait. When you're Al's drummer, they let you do it.
Right.
You can shoot anything.
It's
to paraphrase someone.
Yeah. It's absolutely wonderful to see that you have, such an amazing access, and you have just a delightful eye too. I mean, to me, a lot of these are stills right out of, right from, the music video or, concert footage. It's, and the fact that it's, black and white, I mean, it's just, it echoes that nostalgia, and, it seems, just eternal. Most photographs are going to be that because, they capture that moment that you're in. But I think that it's just, like this, I think simplicity might be, too easy of a word, but, it really cuts it down to, key information in the photograph, where when it's just black and white, it's very straightforward, but at the same time, it's, you don't get confused with all the saturation of colors. It's just that ever longing feeling. I love black and white photography. It's something that always just grabs my attention.
Well, there's a vibe. There's a certain vibe. It
Yeah.
puts you in a different place. If you saw color, well, there aren't color versions of these, but if these were to appear in color, it would look different. It would be like, oh yeah, a bunch of snapshots. But the fact that they're black and white, there's a certain documentation factor. There's somehow more official or something, or you look at them differently. They have a different vibe, and that's what was cool about these, and the fact that none of these, or almost none of them, had been seen before. I mean, I wasn't developing black and white anymore. I just sort of shot some black and white, for fun. I figured, well, we're shooting these videos, let me kind of document it in black and white as well as color. I mean, I have color photos from these videos as well.
Yeah.
But the black and white ones, because I really didn't have easy access to print them, and it was kind of, it was expensive to go out, and just get them done. I thought, well, they're just sort of, it's documented. And I already had color photos, and I thought, these will just sit, and they did for 35 plus years. So I mean, they haven't been seen. So I mean, one, they're black and white. You don't see a lot of black and white of Al, and 99% of these hadn't been seen at all. So that's the beauty of this. And the negatives were professionally scanned, and the handful that have been seen haven't been seen in this quality.
Yeah.
But that's what's special about the book. It's not like, well, Bermuda takes a lot of photos. Well, yeah, but you haven't seen these, and they look different. It's not even that these were a bunch of different color photos. This is a whole other animal. And that's what's very cool about this book.
Yeah. I wanted to ask too, why did it take so long for you to put together, your first book?
I don't know. As Al wrote in the foreword of this book, I've been threatening to write a book for years. I mean, I even have a title for that. I'm not going to give it away yet, but
yeah,
I've been thinking for years about putting together sort of a like almost a diary of my years with Al. Which is now over 40 years since I met him, and this came up. I've been sitting on these negatives for a long time, and it only came up because I was digitizing a bunch of audio cassettes. I know that has nothing to do with this. And that's actually a project I started back in the early 90s and took a long hiatus. I wasn't that ambitious about it, and then got ambitious a couple of years ago and finished it up. I finished up all my tapes, all my reel-to-reel tapes, everything. I mean, not just Weird Al, but I taped everything. Yeah. So that was all done. And I thought, well, I've now archived that portion of my life, my audio recorded life. Maybe I should start thinking about all my negatives, hundreds of rolls of film. And so I was going to explore those and look through them, and I came across these contact sheets that I had and these negatives of these black and white shots that are in the book that had never been dealt with before. These were all just sort of sitting there and kind of literally out of sight, out of mind. And that's when I thought, it would be cool if they were seen. Maybe somebody would like to see them. And I asked Al at the time, and this was July of 2017, and I said, do you mind if I publish these, or at least put them out there or something like that? Yeah. He says, yeah. And he hadn't seen them, and I really hadn't even seen them either. I mean, they were still in negative form. And I didn't do much else after that for a couple of years. But last year in 2019, I got motivated a little bit more, went through, experimented with getting some of them digitized. They looked really good. I thought, okay, I'm onto something. I think these can work. I think they will look good in print. And I was introduced to a publisher through one of our friends at Sony Music. And he said, this guy might be a good fit for you, and it was Matthew Chonacki at 1984 Publishing. And they specialize in pop culture and music related coffee table books and other projects, similar projects. So this was like right up their street. Nice. And it worked out great. And we've been working on this all year. And I'd love to say, with the pandemic and all that, I didn't have anything to do, so I put together a book. Well, it was already in the works. And thankfully the pandemic didn't really affect the progress of the book at all. It was delayed by a month, maybe. over that whole time. So it came out and in time for Christmas, and it looks great. And the fans' responses have been really good. Al loves the book. He's very very happy with the way I kept him in the loop the whole time, of course.
That's cool.
And everyone's very thrilled with the book. I mean, it's just, and I'm very proud of it. And publishing folks did a great job. Shane and Desiree Lewis did all the layouts on it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I had literally one change. They were very good about letting me approve everything and make suggestions and all that. And I had one change where there was a photo of us from the Rocky Road video with Dr. Demento. So it's Al and the band with Dr. Demento standing at a plane out in a field. And we shot this, we shot the video at an airstrip.
Is it, I think it's this one, right?
That's the one.
Is that the one?
That's the one. That was out in an airstrip in Agua Dulce, which is near, it's a little north of LA. It's between Santa Clarita and like Lancaster, California. And this was I want to say it was an abandoned airstrip, but it probably wasn't. I mean, that plane doesn't look very abandoned to me, but it was largely, nothing going on there. And there was sort of a cafe or whatever that was part of the building, a small, building or two. And I guess they rented it out for movie things and stuff like this. So we had it for a day for the video.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the shots. And this is the only shot with the four of us, like a nice shot of the four of us that you can actually see us, and with Dr. Demento. And the only thing I had to say about this, they had this as a smaller photo, and I asked them to put it across 2 pages. So that actually, if you open up the book and look at that photo, that's what you would see. No. And I wanted to do that. One, that's a special photo because it's got all of us in it. And 2, I thought, you know what, this would also be a great page, and there's some nice space on there for all of us to autograph it. If somebody's got a book and they run into, the band and hopefully Dr. Demento at some point, they can go ahead. That would be the page that they want to get autographed. So that was the only thing. Other than that, I was extremely happy with the way the book was laid out and the sequence of the photos, and everything they did was great. I'm very, very happy with it.
Man, that's awesome. Oh, geez. Yeah. When you were putting together the book, and you're sitting there during the editing process, writing it and everything. Were there a lot of similarities to recording an album? A lot of just creative dialogues, a lot of editing, that sort of thing, or was it just a brand new beast?
Well, it was new to me in that I knew and as far as the albums, I mean, Al is the mastermind behind all of those, and we come in and we do our parts in that stuff, but we're not involved to the extent that he is in all the things that the album is and the eventual promotion and stuff like that. And that's where I got a real taste of what it takes putting together something, with my name on it, and Al's name, of course, as I really got a feel for what he goes through, with approvals and seeing things in progress and being given, dates, for when things are going to happen, and then the eventual promotion of it and having things lined up, and then, looking at the Amazon rankings every few hours to see what it's doing and stuff like that. So I really got a sense of what it's like, this is more than an album would be. This is like my own project. And I get a lot of the feelings that Al must go through, when he's got an album or in his case, books and things like that coming out. So that was cool. So it was new to me, and it's cool. It's very exciting.
Yeah, most definitely. For everybody that's watching, make sure after this interview, go to blackandwhiteandweird.com to purchase your copy, and make sure to visit Bermuda at bermudaschwartz.com. Man, I can only imagine what it's like to put together, your first, photography book. Do you have, and it sounds like you have a massive accumulation, a nice catalog of other photos. Yeah. Is there any, plans to do any follow-ups?
Well, there hasn't really been any discussion yet. I mean, I certainly have enough photos to do some other themed books. I mean, this was the theme of this is that these are black and white photos that haven't been out there before. It's not strictly videos. It's none of it's on the road. I couldn't really shoot black and white on the road because I couldn't take it anywhere and get it developed because we were moving from city to city. Color, I could take it into a 1 hour place and have it in my hands, immediately. But black and white, that wasn't really an option. I mean, I never, after the Living with the Hernia video in '86, I never really shot black and white again. That was it. I don't know. I don't remember quite why I started up, and I don't remember quite why I stopped. But this book represents those 3 years that I did. But there are a ton of other. I mean, I could very easily put together a photo essay of life on the road. Both from the negatives. I always had a camera with me in the studio everywhere. I could do in the studio a book of us in the studio all the way back to the very first album. Ton of photos with Rick Derringer and all the guys, and everyone was very, again, I can't stress enough, they were very cooperative and let me take pictures, being out, I didn't just wander in. I wasn't some fan, and I wasn't hired by Al's manager. I mean, I just was there and had a camera and took pictures, and I was the only one that did that for a long time. And so I've got pictures that nobody's got, that nobody could get. There's pictures, on our very first tour where Al and I shared a hotel room. I have pictures in the hotel room of, I just pictures nobody else could possibly have, and probably that he doesn't want out there.
Right.
But that's the special edition of the book. That's, there are certainly other books worth of photos, and maybe a little more text. I deliberately kept the text to a minimum. Just, I didn't want to do captions for each photo. In a lot of cases, I didn't know the people's names that were in the photo. Like maybe a crew member or something like that, the makeup person. I didn't have a name, and I thought, well, if I can't be accurate, I better not say anything at all.
Sure.
I don't want to be incomplete. I want to be accurate, or accurate by omission, I guess, by just not saying partial information.
And to that, being genuine too. You want to make sure you've got stories behind those photos. So
well, right, and I tried to cover some of that in the intros to each of the chapters in the book. It's interesting. I've learned a little bit more. Most of that text was written early in the year, and about 8 months before the book actually came out, and I have since learned a lot of information that I would have liked to have included in those chapters. And if there's ever a reissue of this book and we have a chance to correct some things or make some additions, there's probably about a paragraph that I can add to each of these chapters, whether it's a name or some interesting thing or whatever. For example, I just learned, like in the last few days, that in the I Love Rocky Road video, and I probably knew this at the time, but I forgot, and nobody told me anything when I was asking questions about the video, that the ice cream truck used in there was the same ice cream truck used in Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams.
Ooh, nice. Excellent.
The movie.
You're right.
So, and I went through and I found pictures of that and color pictures of ours to make sure it absolutely matched up. It's the same truck.
Nice.
That would have been great, but it's not. I didn't say that in the book. And next time I will. And now I get to say it in this interview. But I mean, that's something I literally just learned and would have liked to have included. So I've got a list that's growing a little bit. Every couple of weeks, I have some new thing to put in that if I get a chance to rewrite these chapters, there are things that I would like to add. If there's an opportunity to add some more pages and put in, if the publisher says, if you can dig up 50 more photos, because there are a lot of photos that did not get used. Yeah. And there's a lot that could have. I mean, I don't dislike any that are in there, but there's a couple that would merit also being in there as well. So if we can expand the photos and add some photos and add some text, it's going to be, the second edition of the book would be really, really cool. I've got more names. I mean, I've got just some impossible things that I found out that I would have included if I had only known. So, and it's not that I didn't try and do the research, but just some things kind of fell into my lap, as opposed to my inability to use Google, let's say.
It sounds like, with the book being out there, it's a wonderful living document. You have if you have the opportunities to update it and change it, if not, though, you're still learning, either new things or being reminded of some old stuff that it had occurred. I think art, should be that thing that, keeps the conversation going.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely, and it's interesting again with this truck thing, with the ice cream truck thing.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I saw that, I said, where have I heard that before?
Right.
And it was like, I think that's really the case. I'm going to compare some photos and make sure. And it's like, okay, that's it. So I made a note to do that. But yeah, it's, and also as I was going through these photos and really seeing, on my screen, like the proper scans, not just on a contact sheet, just little tiny picture, but actually seeing these things blown up, I was reliving and rediscovering all of this stuff, for the first time, in my life so far that week.
Yeah.
Since 83, 84, 85, 86, I was, seeing these things again and rediscovering. And it was really, really cool. I was seeing faces I really hadn't seen. Maybe I had some pictures of people in the black and white photos that I didn't have in the color photos that I'm more familiar with. Because I have hard copies of all of those. The best color photos have been published before, meaning on weirdal.com.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have appeared in books. Sony put out a wonderful box set a couple of years ago that had a 122-page booklet in it, chock full of photos, a lot of them mine.
Cool.
And a lot of photos appeared in there. Some of them for the first time, others, for the first time in better quality, as larger scans this time around than I would have done back in the 80s, let's say. So it was really cool seeing this, and yeah, it brought back, it was like an insider looking in kind of a thing, and it was really cool. And as I was seeing these things, I thought, the fans are they're gonna love this,
right?
Because it's different. These aren't just black and white versions of the color photos they've seen. There's people in here that aren't anywhere else.
Right.
And that's what's cool about that. And that's, I've tried to, I would have liked to have named all of them. I've got a few more names now than I did. Like one of the things, and I apologized in print for not remembering his last name. It was in the Ricky video, the kid that played Little Ricky. I remember his name was Sasha, Sacha. And I knew he was somebody's kid, obviously, but it's somebody had brought someone was there at the video shoot, and it was his. I don't know if she was on the crew or whose kid it was, but I knew there was a connection there, but I could not find anything on his last name. I didn't have a call sheet from the video. I mean, normally I would keep those things. I didn't do that on that very first video. That would have had his. I would have liked to have given his last name. Well, I stumbled across a photo of the kid with his mother, and on the back of the photo, I had written her last name. Instead of on the photos of him, I just put Sasha. And on the photo of her, it said Patricia Guzzi.
Oh,
and
okay.
I thought, the kid's name is Sasha Guzzi. So when the book comes back out, if it comes out or I get a chance to rewrite that or put out somewhere on the website, some addenda, that would be part of that, is I'd be able to include his last name.
Right. Wow. What a sweet and endearing, time capsule.
Thank you.
To me, it seems like you've lived a number of lifetimes. So
I'm living one again with this book. I mean, every time I see the photos, it's like, wow, it's the way we were.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. With the idea of potentially doing an expanded version with additional photos and stuff, and the idea of maybe doing a follow-up. I would love to see what your colored photography also looks like.
It's just colored pictures. It's just a bunch of.
Sure.
I mean, I used to shoot even more. It's funny. I was even more rabid shooting photos that I had to pay for the film and the developing. I always got 2 sets of prints, so I could give whoever was in the photo, they got a print, and then I would have a master set that have stayed in the archive that I still have. Then I do now with my phone, and it's free. I mean, I shot way more photos, and at a time when that was expensive. Now and photos, digital photos are free.
Right.
And I'm not that rabid about. I was just really rabid about shooting photos, and I'd like to say that all of them are great. They're not all great. but I had a pretty high, I have, a pretty decent eye, and a pretty high percentage of them are publishable and enjoyable.
Yeah.
And, I had a very good sense of framing, the subject, and, there's very few pictures where it's like, God, I wish I'd moved over about 2 inches and captured. There's something on the left I wish I could have seen. I pretty much got what I had intended to get. I pretty much got the whole story in each photo, and I'm very proud of that. That's one I have a good eye for that. But that's just from years of taking pictures and being careful about what I shot back in the day, because it was expensive. I mean, I had to pay for that stuff. Even though when I was shooting black and white in the 70s, I still had to $10 for a big roll of film was a lot of money.
Right.
So for a guy not making much money, so I was very careful about what I shot. I was as thrifty as I could be, but I wasn't stingy. If I wanted to shoot something, I shot it. And maybe I didn't shoot 10 pictures of somebody, but I would certainly shoot 1 or 2 of them.
Do you think that might have also helped train your eye? Being careful of the economy of the cost of developing footage and everything. It's like, yep, I'm just going to wait for that perfect moment and the perfect framing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely an economical decision.
Yeah.
And still, I took just a ton of photos. I mean, really just a ton of photos. And it's interesting now, maybe I think in the back of my mind, I got enough photos. I really don't need to shoot a lot of photos. I still shoot stuff on the road, but I remember taking I always have my phone with me, of course. And I remember taking a digital camera on the road for years and years and years. I got my first digital camera, I think in 99 or 2000. And I think on the 2018 tour, I had my digital camera with me, and I don't think I took it out once to take a photo.
Okay. Wow.
And on the last tour, I didn't take a separate camera at all. I just had my phone.
Yeah.
I've got some very cool lenses that go with the phone from a company called Moment.
Nice.
And there's a case that goes on the phone. Actually, I got it right here. It's a case that goes on the phone, and there's a little bayonet mount, and the lens screws on it. It's a hefty lens. These are glass, metal, nice lenses, and they're dead clean. There's wide angle, there's fisheye, there's no distortion. They're clean from edge to edge. There's a macro lens that has one focal length, which is about 5/8 of an inch, and that's it. You can't get any closer or any farther away, but you can like look in the pores in your skin. I mean, it's one of those, you can see the fibers on paper. It's that kind of lens. And that's really been cool. I've been able to take pictures that, that my other digital cameras wouldn't take. I mean, they didn't have add-on lenses that were any good.
Yeah. That's cool.
And these are not the kind of snap-on lenses, because I did those too, and they're sort of not very clear, and they're fun, but they're really not, these lenses are like $100-$120 a piece, which is cheap for a lens, but that's expensive as, these other sort of snap-on lenses go. But I'll tell you the difference, it was absolutely worth it. And I got photos I could never get with these little, $10 and $20 and $30, $50 lens snap-on things. They're not the same. These things are, these are like pro phone lenses,
Nice. Yeah. Last week I was, I do murals. So last week I was meeting with some architects at a large brewery up north, and I was sitting around taking photographs of this brewery. It's dark, and big expansive space, and I really was not enjoying how my iPhone 6 was taking photos. But the architect I was working with, she had like the very new iPhone, was it iPhone 12 or something? Had 3 different camera lenses that shoots simultaneously, and gets this amazing macro image. And I'm like, you gotta please use your phone and shoot this place for me, so I've got an understanding of the space I'm dealing with, so I can design for it. And so she did, and I was just absolutely dumbfounded at the detail. I mean, it's getting up in the high corners of the ceiling, which is like 100 feet away from me, and I can see the grain of wood. And it's just like, nice.
Yeah, the phones now, I think they're probably, the emphasis is more on the camera than perhaps any other aspect of what these devices do.
Right.
and as such, everyone now has a camera with them,
Yep.
and compared to, and perhaps that's why I'm not taking quite as many pictures, is there's all the rest of the guys in the band and the crew and the fans, everyone has got all the pictures of us that we need. And if there's something I want, we just airdrop it or email it. And then I've got it in original quality. And whereas back in the day, I was the only one running around with a camera. I mean, in the studio, I was the only one, because it's just what I did. And Al let me do it because, the second time he ever saw me in his life, I had a camera in my hand. Not the night I met him. That would have been cool. But the very next time I saw him, when we recorded Happy Birthday for this EP, for the Placebo EP, I had a camera. So I had some pictures from that day, from the first day in the studio, as it were. And I always had a camera in my hand whenever I saw him. So he was just used to me taking pictures. I guess he figured that's just what I do. And it was what I did. And now there's a book to prove it.
Yeah, but most definitely, it's. I think that's awesome. I hope you definitely continue to take photographs, because it's always good to get a perspective from Bermuda's point of view.
Well, I'll try. You know what? They're free. I can take as many as I want.
Yeah, most definitely. Have you played around with doing video?
Not so much. I mean, I actually have digital video cameras. I started out with a VHS camera back in '87, and I would shoot all the shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of VHS tapes of us. Then 8mm or high 8 or something like that, and then digital, actual proper digital videos. And then pretty soon, we were just shooting the shows, and I would just get a copy of those. So that was someone else to do that with a much better camera than I would have. And so I ended up with, digital videos of our programs, of our shows. And, but as far as going, exploring that on my own, not so much. I mean, it's really, I don't know. I mean, that's better left to the pros, and the people who are better with, the programs and all that stuff. And just, that's not me.
Yeah.
Photos I can deal with, and Photoshop I can deal with, and if it moves, that's when it gets confusing for me.
Right. Now, I don't know. I think it's really cool. What you've been able to do. Put together this amazing time capsule, and I definitely hope to look forward and see more of your work. Hopefully, after. COVID, it'd be great to see some of those photos in galleries.
That would be nice too. There was actually talk about maybe doing a gallery launch and taking some of these and blowing them up, and having a launch somewhere, and a signing and the whole thing. And of course, that's one of the things where COVID did interfere with the book. As far as the actual physical book coming out, couldn't stop that, but it did. It did change any other personal signings and things like that, which is a drag, because there's some cool shops in LA. There's, other shops I would have visited in some key markets across the country, and I know the fans would have come out, and it's just, now I'll just have to, when we're on the road, eventually again, and, the fans who bought a book, we'll bring it to the show, and then, I'll catch up with them there and sign it. They could probably get Al to sign it as well.
Man, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. And what a wonderful time to also engage with the fans, get their in-person experience of what the live show is, and all the fun wackiness that happens on stage, plus here's that time capsule that comes with it.
Well, of course, as anything where it was 35 plus years ago, we all look different. I mean, Al shed the glasses and the mustache, 20 years ago. I shed my hair 10 years ago. Everyone looks different than we did, back in the day. And so it is definitely a time capsule. If you were to hand this book to a young fan and they would look at that and then look at us, they would not know what the relationship was. They wouldn't say, what's important about this? This is really for the fans who are kind of around in the day, or for the hardcore newer fans that appreciate the old videos and the old look and stuff like that. And remember, like Al, when he looked like that, and listened to that music, then it makes sense. that's like being a Beatle fan now and wanting to see pictures of them in the early 60s, with
Yeah.
Pete Best and stuff like that. And it's like, well, that's not the Beatles that we all knew, or we weren't even alive then, but we get it. We dig it. And, so
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have a nice starting point. And this is the foundation to, for that thing that you love.
Well, that's cool. Thank you. And if we do some more books and I get to trot out the color photos, I do have photos that predate these as well, and can then show photos of us on the road. I have color photos that were shot at most of these videos, and a lot of those have not been seen before. There's a wealth of other photos, but a lot of those have been seen. The ones that maybe we all thought should be seen have been published in different media, mostly on WeirdAl.com when I started that kind of back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was a vehicle to put out a bunch of photos. And but what the thing about these is that they are black and white. Nobody's seen them, but that may whet the appetite and may be time to see some other photos in better resolution than on the old, But when I was scanning these photos back in the 90s and the early 2000s, they were much smaller. Screens were smaller, bandwidth was slower. And the resolution on these photos was very small, and they were crunchy. Yeah. So, photos that looked okay back in 97, 98, and you look at them now, the ones that are still posted, they're tiny and they're crunchy, and the resolutions, the density is poor and all that stuff. That would be the time to go back to the negative, scan those, and do another book this size. This is like a 9 by 12 inch book, and see some of these things like in a much larger format, much cleaner, color corrected, and in a way that nobody's ever seen them before. So that's the allure of maybe putting out some photos that have been seen before, and a lot that haven't, is that you've never seen them like this, like digital recordings of stuff that didn't sound so good 70 years ago sound great now. They've gone in, they've remastered, remixed, whatever it is, and 50 years ago, and you get to hear them cleaner. You get to hear them better. Right. I don't know if that's good or not. I think when you're looking at a photo, it's better to see a cleaner photo. Nobody wants to see, oh, that's a crunchy photo. It takes me right back to 1995. Yeah. It's like, but you can't see anything. It's just, now here I got, now we're blowing them up. They're 20 times bigger. They're 100 times cleaner. There's no dirt on them. The color's corrected. You can see what's going on. It's just they're beautiful photos. There are some nice photos. I'm very proud of most of the photos I've taken.
Nice. Yeah. Looks like got our first question. Have you performed at Red Rocks before?
We have. We have with Al twice. Very first time we were there was in July of 1987. And we were opening for the Monkees. We were on their second sort of comeback tour. In 1986, they did like a major tour. MTV was replaying their TV shows, and like a whole bunch of fans. There was like a whole bunch of new Monkey Mania. So they booked a tour and went out, and we didn't go out with them in 86, but they booked a tour, did very, very well, and thought, oh boy, we're a band. So they booked another tour in 87. We went out. We weren't doing anything. We had an album out that wasn't really worth touring. Polka Party had come out in 86, and it wasn't really a touring album. But so we had nothing to do. So when they said, you want to come out, you open for us, it said, oh, sure, great. So we went out and did that. And we played Red Rocks on that tour. Now, we played Red Rocks again last August, and on our own tour, of course, and that was for the Strings Attached tour. And we played with the Colorado Symphony Orchestra. They played with us, actually, and awesome. Sold it out, which is like 9,000 plus people. And it was very cool. Red Rocks is a very magic place, to play and to be seen, I guess. I haven't seen any acts there, but it's a very cool place. And we knew it was cool back in 87, but it wasn't really our tour. It wasn't our show, and it didn't have the same kind of impact. When we came back, and now it's our show, and the people are there to see us. Now it's very, very cool. That was a real treat. We really, 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 really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. You guys have a huge following out here in Denver. I've got a lot of friends that have bands that are influenced greatly by what you and Weird Al do.
Oh, cool. Oh, very cool. Well, Denver's a cool city. We played the Paramount Theater downtown a couple of times. And what I like about that is right down the street, literally right down the street, is a Grimaldi's Pizza, which is my favorite pizza place. So I've been there a couple of times. The last 2 times we played the Paramount, I wandered over, and instead of getting free food at catering, I paid for it at Grimaldi's, but I liked it a lot better. So.
Nice. That's cool. And we didn't really touch up on your design work, but you're one of the early web designers back in the early '90s.
Well, I actually started designing in '95, and the reason I started doing it, excuse me, was because I was already online for a couple of years, and there were some of the fans who were more technologically inclined, certainly, than I was, had put up some websites dedicated to Al. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, I've got a bunch of photos and stuff, that nobody's ever really seen. I could probably put up some cool things and, do my own site for Al. So I went out and got a book, which I think was called How to Create Cool Web Pages. And now web designing in 1995 was a whole lot simpler than it was to become. So I literally, I was able to put together a basic site very, very quickly. And it was called the Bermuda Files. And we didn't really have, there wasn't really a domain name. It wasn't like BermudaSchwartz.com, anything. It lived at the web space on the provider I had, which was loop.com. And so it was loop.com/tilde, which is the character next to the 1 on the typewriter, the Spanish thing, tilde Bermuda. And that was the website that was basically my, information on Al. I probably had some of the dates, the concert dates we'd played. I put up some photos, some basic information. Anyway, within a couple of years, it became weirdal.com. And I continued to be the webmaster on that and do design. And as the web space became bigger and speeds became faster and screen resolution became bigger, I was able to put better graphics on. I was able to do a little bit more, and continued doing that for probably 22 years, until the site eventually was converted into a WordPress site that Al could manage on his own. And he's been doing that for the last few years. And but it's it was very cool doing that. And I also started a business, Bermuda Schwartz Web Design, got a business license, permit for a home office, and got some clients. Got several other clients. Eventually, the technology and the demands of devices with optimization and stuff like that began to, was out of my grasp. And some of the clients had moved on to a site that would look better on an iPhone or an iPad, and that just wasn't what I did. And I've thought about, should I really get into that? And it's like, I've done my 20 plus years of web design. That's fine. I had a good run. I still manage a couple of sites. I can still manage my own site, so that's good. And so I'm not really in business doing that anymore. But I did start at a time when it was possible, and looking back, it was really simple and really elementary in my mind, but it probably was very elusive for most people. And I wrote code from scratch. There really weren't programs that would let you do that. There were some helper programs. They weren't very good. I actually tried one, and it was harder than just writing from scratch. And I kept up on advancements and stuff like that, but I kind of left off when iPhones became the rage. That's where I left off, and leave that to the pros.
Nice. Oh man, well that's cool. I never hear from designers who got started back in the '90s. It's always in the last 10 years or so.
Well, and they're probably doing all the things that I should have learned to do, if I wanted to stay in business. But I just I don't know. It was partly a labor of love, and I made a couple of bucks doing it back in the day. But I was on top of the game, and I knew everything there was to be known. And unfortunately, it got out of my reach, and it's been advancing too much, for me to try and catch up at this point. Right. It's something I should have thought about 10 years ago, and I don't know. Not one of my biggest regrets, but you know, that's okay. I'll leave it to the pros.
Nice. Well, yeah, Bermuda, it was absolutely amazing, having you on the show, and you being so generous with your time and sharing, your love of photography and your art. It's been great getting to know you and just have a wonderful conversation with you.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and for everybody that's watching, make sure after this this interview, go to blackandwhite.com and purchase your own copy. And the next time you see Bermuda, get it signed. We're going to be out of this COVID thing, hopefully in the next year, if not sooner. And he'll be back on the road.
Yep. And with a Sharpie, I'll be happy to sign.
Excellent.
Got a Sharpie, got it all ready.
Let's get it done. Oh man, Bermuda, if you could, hang out for just a minute. But again, want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been wonderful talking to you, and to everybody out there that tuned in. Thanks so much. Have a great evening, and be good, be kind to each other. Look out for each other. We love you. Have a good night.
Bye.